I had this opportunity to go to Nashville to do this record that at the time was a really wonderful opportunity, and I sort of look back on it more fondly. But the reality was it was a development deal that I thought was going to make me rich and famous, and ultimately did none of those things. And I sank upwards, of $20,000 Canadian into this album. Ended up selling like 30 copies of it to my friends and family because it really had no infrastructure in this deal to promote it or to market it or to build a career. It was just like dumping money into a project. That experience was sort of the first chink in the armor for me of realizing that this sort of fantasy that musicians like to have of if you build it, they will come is a fallacy. But I think this idea that, you know, I'm just going to make this song and then something magical is going to happen and all my problems will be solved is just, I'm so guilty of falling into it. I think a lot of musicians are guilty because we just want to make the music. But the business is the most important part of it. And my mission now is to help other musicians not make the same $20,000 mistake that I made.
Welcome to the Musician Secrets podcast. Today, I have Patrick James Clark with me today. He's a full-time musician and author, as you will see in just a minute. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Patrick.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited. I'm always happy to nerd out about music marketing and music in general. So very excited to find another fellow funnel builder in the world to talk all things marketing and funnels today.
Your story really inspired me because I feel like so many musicians get stuck in that same situation, and it breaks my heart every single time. Like, this does not have to be like that. Like, can you just tell your story really quick, how you spent like $20K on your album when you were 19, and then how you transition and what you're doing today? Because I feel like a lot of musicians are struggling with that.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been a full-time musician really for like the last 10 years or so. I'm 31 now. I've been a musician for the last 10 years, sort of working professionally. I've been a full-time for maybe the last 6 or 7. But yeah, so when I was 19, I graduated from college, and I had this opportunity to go to Nashville to do this record that at the time was a really wonderful opportunity, and I sort of look back on it more fondly. But the reality was it was a development deal that I thought was going to make me rich and famous, and ultimately did none of those things. And I sank upwards, of $20,000 Canadian into this album. I worked 2 jobs where I was waiting tables at night and working retail in the day. I worked 125 days in a row at one point. I worked over a year, like 60 hours plus a week. My parents had an intervention for me. Like, they were so worried about my well-being because I was like running it to the bone, trying to, you know, fund this album. And then ultimately went to Nashville and recorded this record, and, you know, put all this sort of money into it, and did artwork and got a, you know, photographer and got it distributed or, you know, manufactured. And then, ended up selling like 30 copies of it to my friends and family because it really had no infrastructure in this deal to promote it or to market it or to build a career. It was just like dumping money into a project. And ultimately, you know, I just wasn't even at a skill set that was warranting doing a record like that. And, you know, maybe I wish I'd known that at the time, but I do think these scars are all valuable to go forward. But that experience was sort of the first chink in the armor for me of realizing that this sort of fantasy that musicians like to have of if you build it, they will come is a fallacy. It's just not the reality of how the modern music world works anymore. And I thought I'd have this album, I'd just put it out, and my problems would be solved for me. And then over the last, you know, decade from that, I really sort of learned the ins and outs of the music industry and how you can sort of build a career as, you know, a middle class musician, that there is a gap between broke and lonely and rich and famous, right? It's a spectrum. It's not a binary. It's a continuum. And there's a lot of different places that exist in between there of how you can be building your career. And that's what led me to kind of what I'm doing now and how I govern my career now with these sort of grassroots digital marketing, direct-to-consumer principles that allow me to build, you know, a profitable music career and pay my rent. And, you know, I'm still building my career to chase down a record label or get that sort of high star, rich and famous mountaintop success. Like, I don't think anyone should rule out that. Like, that's a fine goal to have. But I think this idea that, you know, I'm just going to make this song and then something magical is going to happen and all my problems will be solved. It's just, I'm so guilty of falling into it. I think a lot of musicians are guilty because we just want to make the music. But the business is the most important part of it. And I learned that a really hard way. So some of my mission now is to help other musicians not make the same $20,000 mistake that I made. 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah. Because we talked about Chris Bradley before. She's like, it's not
Yes.
Beyonce, big or broke, right?
Yes. Chris Bradley. I love Chris Bradley. She's a very big mentor of mine and
Yeah.
someone who really introduced me into this digital marketing space and really was kind of the first one that put me on the path to understanding, these sort of non-traditional ways that musicians can really monetize their career.
Yeah, non-traditional. I like that. Non-traditional. What before we like talk about like your journey into like not the journey, but like maybe the way how you transitioned into that.
Hmm.
What were like some mindsets that you had to change and shift to be like, oh, okay, like
Hmm.
investing that 20K, like let's say like now, if you had that 20K now,
Yeah.
what would you invest it in and why? And what was like your mindset behind that?
Right. No, that's a great question. So maybe 5, 6 years ago, I did fall pretty heavily in kind of the personal development space, and I started kind of reading a lot of books from people that were speaking about mindset. There's a really wonderful book called High Performance Habits by Brendan
Mm,
Burchard that I must
yeah.
have read a dozen times now. And what really pivoted in my career from that standpoint was understanding the sort of long tail effects of your goals. So I think when I made that record in Nashville for $20,000, which I don't even know if I would still call a mistake. Like it was really foundational work, but
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately was a mistake. Like I wouldn't do it again. Um, but it was really short-sighted in what I was going to do with that record, right? I wasn't really looking past just making it. And I
Hmm.
think now something that's really important to me when I'm investing money into my career or building a project is thinking through the long tail effects of it and then kind of reverse engineering the goals that I have and if the actions I'm taking are going to lead me towards them. So, something that happened to me sort of 5 years ago was reverse engineering goals I had for myself 5 years in the future. And, if I wanted to be a six-figure musician, what was I going to have to do? What were like the big moves I was going to have to make that would actually result in that? And another big thing was to kind of become a professional songwriter. And 5 years ago, I was a strong songwriter, but I had not written a lot of songs. And for
Yeah.
me, I sort of took this approach of Alex Hormozy has this really wonderful quote of do so much volume, it would be
Hmm.
impossible or be unrealistic that you would not succeed. And for
Yeah.
me, I was like, well, what if I could write 1,000 songs? If 1,000 songs could be under my belt, I think I'd be like in a good striking distance of being a professional quality, songwriter. And
Yeah.
that sort of set me on this goal. So 5 years ago, I went on this kind of mission to write 1,000 songs and was really deliberate and intentional about why I was making these goals. So that mindset shift for me really became just looking at a longer time horizon because I think musicians are very short-sighted. We want
Mm,
instant gratification. We want instant financial,
yeah.
recoupment. And the nature of the career as an independent artist, um, that is just not always the way it's going to work out. So making sure that the moves you're making are servicing your career over the long term was the biggest mindset shift that I've had and found success with because it keeps the scope of what I'm doing in check and make sure
Hmm.
that I'm acting appropriately.
Wow. Yeah, that is that is a big one. Like the long tail effect, I wrote that down. Like h
Hmm.
how do you get that like how do you go from like I'm like short-sighted, I don't know what goals to set or like maybe
Hmm.
even like how do you get that vision, you know?
Right. Well, I think we have to stop looking at the music industry as sort of this amorphous blob of success, right? Like it's not very tactical. There's no steps to do how to navigate it. There's no way to get promoted, but there are still things that we want to have happen. And I
Hmm.
think if we can really drill down on what those are for us individually, that gives us a lot of actionable steps that we can implement. So, for me, one of my goals is that I really wanted to be able to sell 200 concert tickets in kind of any city in my province in Ontario, Canada. And okay, so what does that mean if I want to be able to sell 200 tickets in, let's say, 10 major cities? Okay, so that gives me a very tactical number of people that I need to have as a fan base. It gives me a very sort of tactical sense of the regions I want to be targeting, and then
Yeah.
steps to move towards that in terms of where am I right now? Like, okay, so I can sell 150 tickets in my hometown. I can sell 50 tickets in a few auxiliary markets. I can sell like no tickets maybe in Ottawa, for example, because I don't know anyone in there. And I
Yeah.
think drilling down that goal specifically in a lot of different markets, right? So okay, so maybe it's a certain number of tickets you want to be able to sell. It's a certain amount of income you want to be able to make every year. It's a certain amount of streams or not even streams, but like sort of playlist followers, people that consume your music, a certain number of people on your email list, those metrics can be valuable because you can reverse engineer ways to get them, right? And I think we actually all know those answers. We just aren't spending time thinking through an actual approach to accomplishing them because we're not thinking about what our real goal is. Like this idea, I'll just go viral, my song will blow up, and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, why wouldn't it be? Like, that's great.
Yeah.
But something like, going viral, it's not something you can plan for, but it's something you could be prepared for. So you want to have an infrastructure in place that allows you to capitalize on the attention that you're garnering. So please go viral. I would love to go viral. I've gone viral a couple times. It's been really helpful, but that isn't really a strategy you can bank on. So we want to look at like, what do you really want to achieve, right? How are you going to pay your rent? And when you've got clarity on those goals, and it's really important that there's no wrong answer. If you want to play regionally or you want to play stadiums, both of those are fine goals. But without really articulating them and then going, okay, what are the moves I have to make? Like, and maybe that's a 10-year goal to play stadiums, but what do you have to do this year to get you closer towards it? And having that framework in mind is helpful. But, and this is a throwback to Chris Bradley again, something she taught me really early on was like, you have to define what making it means to you. And it only matters what it means to you. And we just don't have clarity on that as musicians because we just want to be rich and famous. Like it's too amorphous. So getting really granular on like, if you want to make $75,000 a year and it's $5,000 a month, what are you going to do this month to bring that money in? And then that becomes something you can do. And then once you get that clarity, just hit it with insane, relentless force until it happens for you.
Do you know Nick D?
Not personally, but I'm familiar with him.
Don't know him, but know of him. Yeah. Like that's what he said, what he did. He's like, if it's just, he just was relentless on content. He's like,
right.
This is my goal. I want to get my Spotify streams up. So he was just like relentless on like putting out content like crazy. And he like said that he even signed to a label and they're like, yeah, we're going to do that all for you. And he said, as soon as he did that, his Spotify streams plummeted because he stopped putting out content. Right. That is crazy.
Yeah. And even like on a smaller scale, like I think people look to Nick D, and I read his book and, I think he's got a lot to offer as a content creator. But I think if he is maybe the pinnacle of what you can achieve as someone who creates content to drive to streaming, that doesn't mean there's not rungs below that could make sense, right? If you're going to say, I'm going to post every day, and I know that if I post every day for a month, it generates 1,000 streams to my Spotify based on like my videos getting 500 views, 700 views every time. That's still a metric that you can then work towards, right? But knowing your numbers like that is it's just crucially important, because then if I post once a day, get 1,000 streams. What if I post twice a day? Is that 2,000 streams a month? Like whatever those numbers are, you just need to be aware of them so that you can kind of take deliberate action.
So kind of looking at the data as well, or data.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I sort of am a proponent of is knowing your numbers as an artist and knowing how the economics of your business break down so that you can make, informed decisions. And if you're going to spend money on ads, like we're just, as musicians, I think we are the most guilty of like dumping money into things without an understanding of the return. And like I spent $20,000 on a record that I had no real plans. Like I thought it was going to be done for me, but I didn't have any tactical plans on how to make that money back. I thought other people would have plans and they did not. And then it just sort of is, a record that's been shelved.
I think what really helped me, because I'm a visual learner, I don't know if, other people are like that too, but like making $1 million or even like six figures, let's say 100K a year.
Right.
That sounds so abstract, right? But I'm like, okay, if I want to make $100,000, that's $8,333 dollars a month.
Right.
And then you like keep breaking it down. I'm like, oh, you know what? I just need to make, I don't know, $200 a day or or 3K a week or something like that. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay, well that seems more reasonable than being like, oh, I want to make 100K a month, a year, right?
Yeah. And even if it's not reasonable, like to the listener, like, I remember hearing those stats and being like, well, that's great. But I think it's also important to know, even if that's not reasonable for you right now, it's clarifying in whether or not the vehicle you're using is it possible to get there. Like before the pandemic, I played 200 bar shows a year. I played as much as I really
Wow.
could. I have friends that played more, but like I pretty much maxed like, how many bar gigs you could play. And there's a
Yeah.
ceiling to how much money you can make by doing that.
Yeah.
There's only so many weekends. There's only so much a pub is willing to pay. So
Mm-hmm.
like it's capped. It's not a vehicle that can bring you to like a multi six figure, business if you're just gonna play $200 bar gig, $300 bar gigs a night. And that might be fine too. But I think if you were telling me I'd like to make six figures as a musician, and you were saying the only way I make money is by playing two shows, a week, then when you break that down, that's just never going to get you there. And I think also I've been very guilty of like not looking at those numbers, and that's what I think is more important, whether or not like you want to earn that much or not. Because it's great
Yeah.
to say make $200 a day, but are you doing something that can make you $200 a day? Like that's worth
Yeah.
asking. Because there are
Yeah.
things in music that will make you that, and there are things that will not. And figuring out the sweet spot I think is really important.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I think that's a good transition into you have a framework, you have tactics that you have in your
Mm-hmm.
book
Yes.
that you want to maybe talk about. First of all, what is your book called? And
Yeah.
then what is about what's the benefit of
Sure, sure, sure. Well,
getting the book?
I've got a visual aid. I'll show it up for the viewers,
Yeah.
but this is the
Yeah,
book.
there we go.
It's called Incremental Growth Theory: How to Build a Profitable Music Career One Fan at a Time. It's coming out at the end of this year, and then will be sort of available everywhere at the beginning of the next year. And it was a book that I wrote primarily for a music marketing course that I was asked to build for one of the universities here in my area, and it was the thesis of it was sort of this idea that over a long enough time horizon, consistency will outperform virality. And it was this idea to carve out, how can a middle class musician really build a career? And again, going viral is awesome and a great thing to strive for, but it isn't something you can plan for. So what are you doing in the meantime? And it was looking at my own numbers of kind of showing up consistently online and seeing this incremental growth occur and this incremental fan base start to build without having any sort of viral hits. And then I started kind of to try to distill down the economics of that and how can you really capitalize on still generating revenue without having sort of this big viral sensation. So it became a two-pronged approach of consistent creative output, showing up online consistently with your content, and then leveraging digital sales funnels. And digital sales funnels are, I think, the bread and butter of most online businesses, but rarely capitalized on by musicians. And I kind of went on this journey the last couple of years to find all the internet music marketers in the world. And I've taken like every music marketing course and conference. I mean, candidly, to this date, I've spent probably upwards of $15,000 on coaches and conferences and courses and everything in the marketing, digital marketing world, music marketing world, to just sort of learn everything I could about this space and try and distill a linear path forward to one kind of building a fan base one fan at a time that can actually generate revenue for you. So the frameworks of that are sort of twofold. It's this consistent creative output, which means we need to be posting every day. We're showing up every day and putting our music out into the world. But the important distinguishing factor between this is that we're not banking on anything going viral. What we're really looking for is a deviant in performance. So if we post every day, there will be a byproduct of just incremental growth. People will just follow you one at a time. Like you might get a handful of followers here and there, and that's awesome. So just showing up every day, it's the same thing. If you weigh yourself every day, you will lose weight just by the mere fact of having that information. So showing up consistently is important. But what's really important is we want to be looking for a variance in performance of the content. So if everything we post gets 500 views, but one thing we post gets 5,000 views, that's an indicator that we've got something about this content that the fan base is responding to. And then ultimately, we repurpose that into paid advertising that we then drive traffic towards our sales funnels. And then in the book, I lay out a number of different digital sales funnels that musicians can capitalize on to, increase the average order value of a customer and then drive, a longer, more nurturing relationship with each fan that comes into their ecosystem. So in terms of how that framework breaks down, and I won't belabor it too much here, but we have sort of our consistent creative output. That's our first point. We need to understand our funnel economics, really knowing the numbers of our business. How much does it cost us to get a customer? How much does the lifetime value of our customer equate to? What's the average order value of a customer that comes through one of our offers? How much is the general fan spending on the music that we make? Understanding what those metrics are in our ecosystem crucial, right? Critical, a thing that a lot of artists overlook. And then ultimately, we want to introduce different types of funnels. And a funnel, for everyone listening who's not familiar, just a series of web pages that guides the customer through the buying experience, right? So we see these all the time in the world. You go to McDonald's, this is a real world experience. You order a burger, they ask, do you want fries with that? You're getting an additional relevant offer being made to you based upon the thing that you already said you wanted. So musicians can do this too. It applies so easily to everything that we're doing in the music space. We can do this if we have CDs, vinyl, merchandise, concert tickets, specialty offers like custom songwriting. There's a plethora of things that musicians offer, but they're rarely packaged within the vehicle of a digital sales funnel. So often we just go to your store, I buy your shirt, and I leave. And you're leaving money on the table, and you're leaving an opportunity to further nurture the fan who already wanted to buy from you. So in the book, we lay out a couple different types of funnels. They're called front-end funnels and back-end funnels. And the front-end funnels are designed to bring fans into your community. They're lead generation funnels. You see these everywhere. One that's so popular right now is the CD funnel, which is a free push shipping and handling funnel popularized by this amazing company called Indiepreneur. I think they kind of made it famous. But it's a tried and true digital strategy that sold everything from books to weight loss supplements. Anyways, the point is we use front-end funnels to get leads into our community, and then we use back-end funnels to nurture our email list and make offers to them directly that we can then monetize them further. And the result of this is creating a ravenous fan base that can be infinitely smaller than your social media footprint because you have a list, a direct line to a paying list of customers that can fund your music career. And that is sort of like the elevator pitch of how you can implement what I call incremental growth theory and build what I call an incremental growth engine, which is content that fuels funnels that fuel your career.
That alone is just mind blowing. Like the first time I heard about this, I was just like, what is going on right now? Like it blew my freaking brains out. I'm like, what's going on? Like I did not understand obviously we see it offline all the time. Like you use the example of McDonald's, right? Do you want fries with that? That is a natural upsell, right?
And you see it almost in everything else that you buy. Like I ordered pizza last night, and even within the Domino's Pizza app, it will give you order bumps and upsells. It will make you additional relevant offers. It's kind of the way that people sell anything these days, except musicians by and large. There's obviously like a few wonderful, music marketing communities out there, but I would say like when you look at the musician industry landscape as a general populace, most musicians are not leveraging these digital sales strategies to make money.
I think I can count on one hand how many musicians are really using funnels. Like
Agreed.
The first musician that introduced me to a fan funnel was Chris Greenwood from Manifest.
Sure.
And then I found what's his name from Beats, and I have his logos in his he has those two swords crossed.
Okay.
Why am I spacing out on the name? I'll blend them in once, in the edits. But Legion Beats.
Okay.
Legion Beats is his company, and he's also from used ClickFunnels forever.
Yeah.
But what's his name? But his company is called Legion Beats. He helps producers and stuff like that, and then Chris Bradley and stuff. Where I'm like, oh right, this is a common denominator I've been seeing. Leah McHenry, she has 5 kids, and then she's like, I don't tour and have 5 kids, and I just make 6-figure income from my music. This is how I do it. And she's talking about these funnels, and I'm like,
right,
what is going on?
It really broke my brain as well when I first started learning about it too, because it's not the way that we traditionally think about selling things. And as artists, selling's kind of like the last thing that we prioritize. We're just making art. We're fine to go lose a bunch of money on the show as long as people come, and we're not thinking about how we're governing our career as a business, and then ultimately that's what matters most. If you want this to be a hobby, that's fine. It's a super expensive one, but that's awesome. If you want to just make art for yourself, that's awesome too. I love that for you. But if you want this to be a career, you have to understand the economics of your business, and you have to be taking action in a way that serves them, in a way that makes you profitable, which is really important to consider. And digital sales funnels are just one of many, but a really powerful vehicle for musicians to take advantage of And the way that I sort of laid it out is a more linear path that I think artists who are just kind of dipping their toe into this world and never have really heard about these concepts before, I think the book and the way I sort of structure it, because again, it was built for a university course, lays it out in a very linear manner in a way that artists can kind of take one step at a time, which as I sort of fell into this music marketing world and took all the courses, I was sort of looking for a little bit more of a linear path myself. And again, there's lots of wonderful resources out there, and this is just sort of my approach. Everything I teach is things that I do, and that is sort of the approach that's allowed me to generate tens of thousands of dollars in direct consumer revenue and sell lots of tickets and build a very profitable music career and a large fan base using those tools.
Yeah, I think the what do you what's the word? I'm spacing out on my English, but how do you, for people that have never heard about a funnel, you kind of like touched on it, that it's like a digital customer journey. But the question that I get a lot, or that I used to get a lot, is like, CDs are dead. Like if you have like a free plus shipping fan funnel, for example, right? What I got is like nobody buys CDs anymore. Or if you have like download my song for free, they're like, oh, nobody downloads music anymore. Like either what do you use for your front end, like the first offer that you're making, and then what would you say to those people that have like these objections where like nobody gets a CD?
Of course. So kind of two things there. So specifically to the CD funnel, for example, I think it's similar to vinyl. I think what we mean when we say nobody buys X anymore is I don't buy X anymore. And this is a really big problem that musicians have, is where we will put our own sort of buying behaviors onto our audience. And I think that is what hurts musicians the most, what hurt me the most, is this idea that like, well, no one buys these types of band shirts. No one buys vinyl. No one buys CDs. No one buys mixtapes anymore. No one downloads music anymore. We're assigning the things that we place value on and assuming our fans place value on it the same way. So specifically when it comes to CDs, I think you're right. Like I wouldn't recommend opening Tower Records tomorrow and trying to sell CDs to the mass public. But what's happening with vinyl, what's happening with CDs, is they're becoming more of a token piece of merch that artists are using, that fans are getting to support the artist rather than the vehicle in which they are consuming the music from them. So, I have sold thousands of CDs through these funnels, and they are often going to people that listen to them and still like CDs. And they also sometimes go to people who just want them on, as on their shelf in their sort of CD collection, right? The same way that people might buy a DVD still, even if they're going to stream the movie. So certainly the industry of CD manufacturing is not what it was in 1995, of course, or 2005. But I would be very conscious of making sure I wasn't saying things that I wasn't making blanket statements to buying behaviors just because of the way that I buy things. And I have found, and ultimately, like, people are still doing it. Like, people are selling vinyl, people are selling CDs, so it is being proven out in the marketplace. But that would be my word of caution. Anytime I catch myself saying, nobody wants this, I'm often saying, I don't want this. And that isn't always the case with what my fans want. And I've been finding that more and more as I make different sort of unique offers to my fan base, finding things that people are responding to that I wouldn't have initially expected them to respond to. And that's been, really powerful. So that would be my advice to anyone that is sort of shirking trying some of these things. But also it's just easier to say, right? Like, it just is a cop-out. Like, oftentimes we'll find ourselves making excuses for things that we just don't want to do. And, sometimes people will be like, well, no one streams my song or likes my content, or my content always flops. But we're saying that as an excuse to not make any more. Because the idea that, like, content doesn't work is a fallacy, because it definitely works, And, this idea that, like, no one streams music, or no one buys music, or no one will buy tickets to see local bands or indie bands. Like, all that is not true categorically, because it definitely is being played out in the industry by people that are finding success with it. If people aren't buying your music, there's things that are worth exploring. But using it as an excuse to not take action, I think is just like the easiest path to say, I posted for a week, it didn't work, posting doesn't work for me. I'm just gonna stop.
What are some excuses that you hear from musicians all the time? Like you mentioned a few, but we were like, "Oh, I can't do this because of
Hmm.
that." Like
Hmm.
we kind of use it as like a guard where like
Hmm.
I would want to do this, but
Right. Well,
insert excuse.
yeah, I think a lot of like around content, people have a lot of different reservations about not being good on camera, not wanting to seem off their brand, right? Like, and a lot of things can be kind of
Mm.
like content. I think is inherently kind of cringy. Like the point of you like lip syncing to a camera like is inherently kind of cringy. So I understand everyone's reservations about that. But I think one thing, and I know this because this was my excuse for a long time, when I was reservation about making content because I'm not good at making content, right? Like that was my excuse. I'm just not good at doing this. The
Mm-hmm.
reality was I didn't want to get good at doing it because I didn't want to see all of my other friends who were musicians see me fail at it. It's embarrassing to post a lot of content that gets no views. And if I don't post content, I can save myself that embarrassment. And this was a thing I just had to kind of burst through volume of creating content because the real reason most of us aren't making content is because we are embarrassed to be seen failing at it, right? Like that's the biggest thing. If you could post on platforms, and there's some platforms like this, like Clapper, for example, where you could post,
Mm-hmm.
none of your friends are on Clapper. You can just post infinitely. If you knew none of your friends would see any of the content you make, you would be so much more happy to just like blast content out there because you wouldn't care. But there's such a thing amongst like the musician community that we want to have be perceived as succeeding, right? That's the problem with this sort of social media ification of the industry, is that like all my shows were amazing, all my career is awesome, all my songs are blowing up, I'm making so much money. Like that's what we want to be putting out in the universe for a
Yeah.
lot of important reasons. Like there's a lot of gatekeepers that you need to be looking like you're successful. But as soon as you start posting those videos that get 200 views again and again and again, it killers the ego and it is embarrassing. So you have to understand why you're making these actions. But I think that that excuse of like I'm not good enough at it, nobody likes it, I don't want to do this, it's the reality is that you're just embarrassed, and that's okay. And the antidote to that is doing it so much that you just stop becoming embarrassed. Like once you post every day, like I did last summer, I posted 4 times a day for like 4 months just to like get it out
Wow.
of my system. And when you do that, you become so less precious about any one piece of content performing. You get so less precious about if who saw it or who thought it was good, and you just kind of become known as someone who's like creating. And people just know this guy's
Mm-hmm.
just like putting out volume. He's like working the system. He's playing the game. And I think
Yeah.
that that's a huge hurdle to overcome. And I know because it was so hard for me to overcome.
I think what I love from a Sheeran like advice standpoint also is like just write. He compared it to songwriting, but I
Yeah.
think this also relates to content. He's like, do you know how many songs I've written? Like he's like, just get all the dirty tap water
Yeah.
out. Like in the beginning, your first songs are gonna be crap, and that's okay because
Hmm.
they're your first ones. But then just get that out of the way, and then you'll get better and better and better and better. That now he can write a hit in like I
Right.
don't know, half an
And
hour, or Sia did in 20 minutes, or,
right.
whatnot.
And with content, and specifically the way that I use content within the context of my Incremental Growth Theory book, is that it doesn't matter if it flops, because all you're looking for is content that performs higher than average. And that doesn't mean it needs to go viral. You just need
Mm,
it to perform better than something else. And once you kind of use content as this sort of fact-finding mission, as strictly data-driven mission, you become so less precious about it, and all those sort of superfluous outside influences kind of fall away because all you're trying to do is see if this piece of content performed better than the baseline for you, and then doubling down on that. So that is really helpful too. We can come at it with that approach.
mhm. You kind of touched about before, like on sales. I
Hmm.
feel like musicians, it's like this taboo.
Hmm.
Like nobody wants to talk about it, and
Right.
like most musicians that I see are really bad at it. Like,
Yeah.
how can you like what needed to shift in your mind to be like, okay, first of all, I need sales. Second of
Hmm.
all, I need to get good at sales, and I need to change how I look at sales in order to,
Right.
make a music career. Like, what was it? And then how can you incorporate that maybe musicians don't feel cringe about selling, or you can just feel in their
Yeah.
tone once they try to like buy my song
Right.
or like
Right.
they get really weird. Like what are like some tips maybe to
Yeah. No, I
make it a
love
bit
this.
smoother?
I think so specifically when it comes to sales funnels, I think that funnels in digital marketing have a bad rap because our experience in them as consumers is often when we're buying things that we don't really want. like when you're going to buy toilet paper and you get put into a funnel of toilet paper and you're getting offered more toilet paper and bath towels, you're like, I just wanted to buy this thing, right?
Yeah.
It's really important to understand that musicians are not selling car insurance or toilet paper or drain clogger, right? You're selling something that people inherently want in relation to the person that's buying it. The person that's buying it wants it. Okay, so that's a really important distinguishing thing to understand. And the way that best sort of broke it for me, well, a couple of things that helped. One, understanding that context of like the commodity that you're selling is different than another commodity in the marketplace. You're selling something that people inherently want. Secondly, you are a consumer of music as a person, right? Like I buy concert tickets, I buy music from musicians that I like. And you have to understand that to someone, you are that to them, right? And if John Mayer, who is my number one artist, I got into music making because of John Mayer's music. That's the reason I made music when I was very young.
What's your favorite album? Just really quick.
My favorite, probably Continuum is probably my favorite one. Yeah.
Okay.
Because slow dancing in a burning room, probably
That's
Continuum.
good. Heidi Klum is in that music video, which is cool.
Anyways, but if he puts out another record and I want to buy it on vinyl, I'm not offended that he sold it to me, right? And if he didn't, I would be upset that I couldn't buy it. My girlfriend's favorite band is a band called Sleep Token, and they're sort of like pop metal band. And she won this contest to go to their early album listening party, and it was 5,000 people in Canada applied, 20 got it, and she got to go. And she's like the number one diehard fan, right? And she asked me, she's like, how much money should I bring to this? And I was like, why? She's like, well, like I'll be able to buy merch, right? And I was like, yeah, I would assume, like, why wouldn't they have merch at this thing? And they didn't. And, she ended up leaving with one of the decorations just so she could leave. Was like, they let her take one of the decorations home with her. And I thought,
they
man,
had
like,
no merch?
Yeah, it's this exclusive event that was so, invaluable to people. And I thought, man, like, she was wondering how much she could possibly buy for this band that she loves. And she was offended that she couldn't buy more. And I think that that's a really important frame to keep in mind, is that when we're selling music, when we're making our products available to people who don't want them will not buy them. This isn't something you need. This is only something that you want. So if someone does want it, putting them into a sales funnel as an example and making them additional offers through that, which I understand is inherently a little like, ooh, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to make anyone mad. And there's a tact to do it. There's a correct way to do it for sure. There's ways to do it badly. But in general, if I was going to buy music from my favorite artist and then they offered me something else after I bought that, I would not be upset about it. And it only goes to further serve the relationship with the people that like your music, because people inherently want to pay for the things that they enjoy and they're willing to support you. And specifically in music, people are willing to support artists much more than the $9.99 Spotify lifetime subscription would let. And you think that people don't value it, but they're doing that out of convenience. They're not doing it because it's what they actually think the art is worth. So if you give people the opportunity to pay you for the thing that they enjoy, they will be happy to do it. And I think you can only prove that out by your own fandom. And every time I kind of ask myself, I think, if Sleep Token did this, would my partner Christine pay for it? Or would she think it's a good idea? And if the answer is yes, then I think it's a smart move for artists to introduce.
Mm-hmm. I would like to give credit to the person who said this, but I can't remember. And they said, the offer you don't make is the offer they can't take.
Yeah. No, it's
if
great.
you never make the offer,
right,
the worst case, they're going to say no.
Right. Yeah. And I think,
sorry, not interested.
And I think it's also a great way to think about how it can enhance the fan experience versus how it can make you money. So like an example in my book, I talk about a merchandising funnel or a concert ticket funnel. And I talk about, you could be pre-selling your merch with the concert ticket, right? Like you could buy a ticket and then you could have an upsell that's, do you want to pre-order this merch, skip the line, make sure your size is in stock? And I how often do you go to a concert and they don't have the size of shirt you want? You can't try it on. And
ooh, that is good. That's good.
Well, there you go. That's a freebie just for the podcast. But you can structure that. So here's a thing where I was just going to sell my concert ticket, but now I'm going to have a VIP upgrade and I'm going to have the option to pre-order merchandise so you can skip the line and get the size that you want to make sure it's in stock. As an indie, one, that's so valuable because I get the cash up front. I also know how much stock I need to bring to my gig. And I've increased the average order value, the average amount that the fan is going to spend coming through my funnel, which lets me spend more on advertising. So it's a mutual win-win because that fan is so much happier if they were someone who was going to buy merch. And if they weren't going to buy merch, they still won't buy merch. So it doesn't matter. You haven't lost anything in that transaction. So I think when you look at it through that lens of like, will the fan have a better experience based on the offers I'm going to put forth? It just makes selling less like selling used cars and more like nurturing an experience with like, capitalism is best done when both parties leave happy. So that's what you should be trying to do. Like you're not trying to scam anyone with the music you make, and the people that don't want it just won't buy it.
Yeah. Let's talk about Spotify versus a funnel.
Okay.
What is your approach to that? People are like, oh, I'm like trying to make money off of streams and stuff. And then what's the difference between, trying to send people to Spotify and getting streams or sending people to your funnel, fan funnel, merchandise funnel, whatever funnel you want to use, live stream funnel. What's the difference? So because I feel like a lot of artists get stuck in the Spotify world. They get they built their entire world around Spotify, and then it all comes like crashing down when their music gets deleted for using AI or whatnot. I saw Kara that she was like very vocal about that on her YouTube channel and stuff. And so that's a different story, but like what's your approach to Spotify versus funnels?
Sure. No, it's a great question. So something I'm really cognizant of when I talk about these things is I never want to be the person who outright dismisses any vehicle for getting fans. So I would never tell anyone not to focus on digital stream numbers. Like they're vanity metrics for a reason. They make you look good and the industry cares. And if you want doors opening for you, you need those numbers to be at a competitive level. There's a couple problems with having your audience primarily on, we'll use Spotify as an example, but any of the streaming platforms.
Any streaming,
Firstly, it is not a great platform to have direct contact with your audience. It's a very hard platform to get any information out of in terms of who's actually listening to it. You have no direct line of connection. Secondly, it's not great, Spotify more than others, it's not great for really developing a deep fan connection because most people are discovering your music through playlists. And I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've been listening to a playlist and then checked out the artist of the song that came on randomly, right? It's a much more passively consumed experience when people are listening to your music on streaming. It's important. It should not be discounted. Anyone who thinks they can get, doors open for them with 0 monthly listeners is probably wrong. Like it's just the reality is that this industry has gatekeepers. Some of them are old guard, and those numbers matter. Nothing draws a crowd like a crowd, and streaming is a version of that. So that is something that needs to be considered, but there's inherent problems with it. And primarily it's that you don't own the audience. It's the same problem with social media, is that you have no real ownership over the people that you're trying to reach out to. When we're running ads to Spotify, that can be a tactic that can work for you, especially if you can sort of quote unquote trigger the algorithm, but get into some of the more, AI versions of in terms of algorithmic playlisting and things like that and radio. There can be value to that for sure. But I would much rather be driving paid advertisement towards something where I'm capturing the audience. And that's primarily for me. I use an email list, a text list would also work, but a direct line of communication where you can communicate with the people that actually want to hear from you is paramount in importance, especially if you're trying to drive sales. I know Spotify just like recently introduced like shop, like you can kind of do merch now on it, but
Yeah.
more than anything else, you want a direct
Yeah.
line of communication with your fan base. And so like, for example, my email list is a tenth the size of my social media footprint, but it does far more revenue and traction than anything else that I have online, because I have a direct line to the people that really want to hear about the music that I make. And by using a sales funnel as the lead generation magnet, either through a giveaway or like a CD funnel, or any sort of other way that you're going to get someone to opt in, you have got someone who's showed clear intent that they are a fan of yours, so that when you reach out to them again, they're more interested to open your email, to read what you have going on, to stream your new song from that vehicle than from driving everyone to a Spotify platform. So it's not that you should never drive traffic to a Spotify platform. 100% you should, and you should definitely try and get those numbers as high as you possibly can. I love that for you. Please get them so high. But in terms of a opportunity to recoup your investment and to earn an income, that isn't where I'd be putting my emphasis. I would just be really cognizant of why I'm making each move. So like, for example, I have songs that go to radio, and when we want that song to look like it's performing well, like we need to make sure that those Spotify numbers and the streaming numbers are healthy so that it gives clout to the song. That's not going to happen if they're not going to care how big my email list is, for the most part. Like, you're getting 30 seconds to pitch. They want to see your metrics, and then they're done. So, but understand, the reason I'm driving traffic to Spotify is to get these numbers up, not to make money, because you're going to be disappointed. And, money comes, like, a million streams is like $6,000 or $5,000 or something like that. And that's like not nothing, but it's hard to get a million streams. So, and if you're spending
every
money,
month,
and if you're spending money in ads to get those streams, then, that ROI gets even lower. So that's like, those things like to be aware of, right? I try not to have too many like hard and fast rules, but I do like to just make sure whenever I'm like working with clients or working with artists, we just get really clear on our intention behind the action that we're taking. Like, what do we want this to achieve? And whatever the answer is fine, but we should get clear on what it is. Because if you're like, I want to go viral on Spotify so I can become a millionaire, that's a way harder lane to go down than other things that could make you a millionaire as an artist, just like objectively, right?
I think it's like, I think we're kind of like coming full circle to where you said like, what was it? The long tail effect. Like,
Right.
what do you want, right? And then like knowing what the goal is, and then being strategic about that,
Yes.
and knowing what you don't want and what you want as an artist, right? Do you want to tour, or do you not want to tour? Do
Right.
you want to, it just depends. Are you like a band? Are you a solo artist? And all that stuff. I think that all comes into play when you try to build a career. I think a lot of musicians are very vague. Like you
Right.
said in the beginning, it's like, I just want to go viral, or I want to be a millionaire. And I'm like, yeah, it's great, but what are the steps in the meantime? And how clear are you on those goals and those steps getting there?
Yeah, and I think specifically like artists are artists because we like making music. Like, that's why we started doing this. Most of us started when we were young, and we just sort of kept doing it. And then, found a few different ways to maybe keep the lights on or make money, or, specifically like if it's your side job, if you have a full-time gig, then you're not as invested in terms of the economics of that business. You're fine just kind of sinking money, $5,000 into the single that you made and hoping that it blows up. And when it doesn't, well, that's fine. You paid for it with other means. But I would encourage everyone, even if this isn't your full-time gig, even if you don't want it to be, understanding the economics of your business are so crucial, and that if you can have something that's functioning correctly, you can have far more success than something that's just a money pit. Because music has such an opportunity to be a money pit, right? We just keep thinking it takes money to make money. I'll just keep sinking money into this project without any sort of real plan of a payoff. And even at higher levels, like even when labels are involved and you're playing, you're touring a little bit or getting sort of more festival dates, like those numbers, like it can still be hard to make money if you're trying to pay off in advance. Like you really want to have strong, economic vehicles in place to generate money. And that's one of the big things I try and do with this book. And at all levels, like I'm not a rich and famous artist. I am a total indie artist, middle-class musician sort of thing. But these sort of structures are helping me generate revenue and helping me build a fan base. And you can see how it works out at scale, that it would be really effective. And so for kind of any artist at any stage, you could plug this system into artists' careers that are far more higher up than I am, and they would see great, outsized results than what I'm seeing, because they've just got a bigger, platform of audience already there, but they're not capitalizing on the attention effectively. So that's sort of the goal with it.
What's something in your book, Incremental Growth Theory? That's a mouthful. Incremental Growth Theory. That you're the most proud of, where you're like, ooh, if they can just take away this one thing in the book, they're set.
There's a chapter on funnel economics, and it breaks down this relationship, a really important mathematical equation that's super common in the digital marketing space that I don't hear musicians talk about enough. It understanding the relationship between your cost per acquisition, your average order value, and your lifetime value. Those three numbers are so incredibly important to having any sort of success in a marketing campaign. And I feel like sometimes when some of this marketing information gets taught to musicians, those numbers are kind of glossed over because they're trying not to get too into the weeds. And I found as I kind of learned it a little bit more, I was like, no, that's actually so important. Like, let's get really into the weeds on this. Let's spend a chapter to making our spreadsheet. But I do think that chapter alone, if nothing else, like when I do these talks, I've given some sort of lectures at universities and at some keynote conferences and things like that, or just at some music conferences. And I sort of say, like, if nothing else, if you start thinking about these numbers now, start tracking these numbers now, like over the last, if let's say the lifespan of an artist or a fan in your community is maybe like 5 years before they kind of like stop, being active. How much money does that average fan spend in that time, right? Is that lifetime value of your customer $100 over 5 years, $200, $50? That's an important number to know, because especially if you're going to lose money to acquire a fan, to get a fan on your email list, if you know that they're worth maybe $100 to you over the next 10 years, 5 years, whatever, you can make your spending, your advertising budgeting, all of those different sort of actions you're going to take, you can do them with an intention that you understand where the return on investment has potential to come from. So that chapter specifically, I just think is so vital for artists just to think about. And sometimes I'll just say, if nothing else, if this changes the way you at least think about how you're going to govern your career over the next 5 years, I think you'll be really well off. So that specifically, I'm really proud of.
I think because we're getting like deep into the funnel situation here. A lot of artists probably won't know what a CPA is and like average card value and all that stuff. Can you just kind of touch on what that means? Because I think a lot of artists were like, you just lost me here. I know what you're talking about, because like I love talking about this. But I think if I was not familiar with like funnel language, you would have lost me.
No, of course,
so what is a CPA? What is a average card value? And
of course. So just really quick, those three kind of terminology, when we're looking at our cost per acquisition, that's our CPA. It's got other names too. It's like CAC and other, but how much money are you spending to acquire a customer, right? That's what we want to know with our cost per acquisition. And that number can be derived by taking the amount we've spent on advertising and dividing it by the number of customers that we get. We just want to know, and for some people, right, like that cost per acquisition might be $0. They might be people that follow you online already, people that come to your show just through word of mouth. Like, you might not have to spend any money to get customers into your fan base, but if you're running paid Facebook ads, if you're running paid advertising, then you want to know how much do you have to spend to get someone to buy something for you, whether that's a concert ticket or a CD or a piece of merch. That number is really important. And then what we want to do is we want to understand that number, our cost per acquisition, in relation to two other numbers. One, our average order value, which is the average amount of money someone will spend throughout the process of the offer that they're going through. So it's specific to a funnel. So if we're creating a funnel that has a couple of upsells, right? A funnel, again, a series of web pages that guides the customer through the buying experience by making additional relevant offers. So we've got a couple different offers in in this sequence.
Can you maybe like make specific let's say let's use like a front end funnel, like how many offers do you put in there,
Right.
and maybe be specific.
So like the
so
super
they
popular
can
one we've been
kinda-
talking about, the CD funnel, the free push shipping and handling funnel.
Yeah.
Musicians are doing this all
Exactly.
over the place, right? The main offer is my CD. You get it for free if you cover the $5 in shipping and handling. Then we're gonna have an order bump on there. For me, I like to have an autograph available. So for $3 extra, you can get it autographed. Upsell number 1, I've got another CD. Would you like that CD instead? Upsell number 2, I've got some digital copies. You can get them right now. They're not on streaming. Would you like them, right? So we've got 4 products there. That's our funnel. Now, someone's going to go through that funnel, and they're not going to buy all of those things. They might only buy one of those things. They might buy none of those things. Someone will buy all of those things. The aggregate of that is our average order value. What is the average amount of money that a customer will spend when they go through that funnel? We want to understand our relationship in terms of how much it costs to get that customer and how much that customer spend with us, right? That's sort of like basic economics. We need to spend less money to get someone who then, pays us more money than we cost to get them, right? Or we have to spend less than we make. That's like number 101 of having a business. Spend less than you make.
Yeah.
So we want to know that our cost per acquisition in relation to our average order value, which is the average amount of money a customer spends when they go through a funnel. And then the second the value that we need to understand is the lifetime value, which is we just kind of touched on, the average amount of money that a customer spends over the duration that they're in your community. Now, this is like a little bit more of a ballpark metric. A customer's lifespan will be sort of different kind of for everyone, and it might be harder to gauge, but generally you sort of look over the next few years or over the kind of few years that you've had fans in your community. What is the average amount of money that is brought in? And, they can calculate this by really like notes on a napkin. This is not exact, but the lifetime revenue you've brought in divided by the total number of customers that you have will give you a very sort of loose ballpark number of customers. And you should also adjust for like costs of goods, but just like really loosely, right? The average amount that a customer spends in your community. Once we understand those 3 numbers, we can get a really good sense of how our business functions. We can get a really good sense of how much money we can expect to bring in from any fan that any new fan that comes into our community. And we can get a clear sense of how much we can afford to spend on advertising, knowing how much we will generally make back from them. I know that was a pretty deep dive into funnel metrics, but it's explained really nicely in my book. So make sure you pick up a copy. If that was at all interesting to you, I think you really like the explanations in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so don't be like, don't shy away from these things. Yeah. No, but I mean you kind of, step by step, like I've been in this world for 6 years now, right? That is very it took me a while to like kind of, okay, what's an order bump? Like what's an upsell? What's a down? Like then you can get like really lost in the in the weeds here, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, this is so complicated. That's why I created my course and I built the funnel out. So all you just have to put it into ClickFunnels and it's done, right?
Great.
That's what I made it for. So it doesn't get that overwhelming. Totally. So you're like, you don't understand, like, who was it? It's like, you don't need to know how a car is built together in order to drive it, right? I know nothing about cars, right? But I still sit in and drive. To some extent, like obviously if you know how a funnel works and is put together and stuff and something isn't performing the way it should, what is going on,
I think having a peripheral knowledge of like the mechanics of it can be really helpful. But it doesn't mean you need to know exactly how to put the thing together yourself, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, it can get, we just like to nerd out about stuff like
I'll nerd about funnels all day long. And that was like part of this was sort of like writing the book was bringing it down to an introductory level so that it wasn't overwhelming to artists and that people could understand sort of the mechanics of, how if I was going to build a funnel in any software, in any sort of web building software, what are the sort of meat and potatoes of what that needs to look like? What is my real goal here? And again, we're just trying to increase the amount of money that we can get from a customer. And we can do that through, a number of different ways, but primarily a sales funnel can be a really effective way to do it.
So just to kind of recap, so basically what you're saying is to kind of create content on a regular basis, right? And then to send those people to a funnel that makes sense to you.
Yeah, we want to be creating consistent creative output, and we want to be pairing that with leveraging digital sales funnels effectively. So by creating consistently, we're going to look for higher performing content than average. We're looking for the deviance in performance. Anything that's high performing, we can either test as an ad or double down on that type of content, like very broad strokes, but generally we're just looking for our outliers in our content, and then we're going to be running that as ads, or even just using that as organic content to promote a sales funnel. But again, we're using that sales funnel to just capture an audience that we can get a direct line of connection to. So that's sort of like, that's the crux of it. It's a two-pronged approach, two-pillared approach, creating content consistently and then driving them to a vehicle that allows you to incrementally grow your fan base.
Mm-hmm. For the last question, because I can nerd out about
all
this
day.
like,
I could talk about this. Yeah.
I feel like we could like make a 24-hour podcast about that. But for my last question, I like to ask if you, at some point we all go to bed and we wake up the next morning, right? If you would go to bed tonight and you could wake up with any skill that you could just wish for, and you had it, like, I want to be the best marketer, right? And then you go to bed and you wake up and you were the best marketer. What is like the number one skill that you could wish for that you didn't have to put in any work? You would just wake up and have it. What would it be?
Probably like singing or songwriting for sure. Like, I think all this stuff is awesome. Like, what we're talking about is my favorite thing to talk about is music marketing and marketing. Yeah. But it's all predicated on the condition that you have competitive music. So if you don't have strong music, it doesn't really matter how well you market it, like, to a degree, right? So I think for me personally, like, the skills that I'm really trying to up level are still my musicianship, and everything is dependent on your musicianship and your ability to make music that is compelling, that people want to buy. Because having the best way to market, the worst thing is just not helpful. So to answer that question, if I was going to look for more, I'd probably want to be the best at probably singing, because, like, if I could be the best singer. But yeah, it would be a musician. It'd be a hard music skill for sure. That's would always be my answer.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there are a lot of value bombs in here.
Oh, good.
You probably want to like re-listen a couple of times to this.
Nice.
It's always good that I get to edit it after, and I'm like, oh God, I could have this and that, and like, oh my gosh, I didn't like clock this, and like, it's always good to like re-listen and stuff. And I'm really grateful that you are doing what you're doing, that you're helping musicians. Like, this is just so valuable, because I wish I would have had this like 6 years ago.
Same, I sort of like had to piecemeal it together a lot of different ways sometimes.
Yeah, totally. And I'm like, it would have saved me a bunch of money and time and tears, and it's so hard. But what I'm trying to do with this podcast is like, there are people out there who are doing this. And the cool thing with musicians, they're really trying to help each other out.
Right.
Like, it's really rare that I'm like, no, I don't want, like, just go figure it out yourself. Like,
yeah, I mean, certainly when I learned these
cool
strategies, I was like, it's like yelling it from like the gospel, you know what I mean? Like, you just want it. Like, once you kind of crack something, you're like, oh, I need to tell everyone about this. Less so, I think, like, maybe from music, like specifically music-based things. Like, I think artists are still probably competitive, like, musically, but I think when it comes to sort of like these tactics, people seem really generous to like want to have discussions and collaborate on, which is wonderful. I think that's awesome. Even just look at how many other, like, there's other music marketers in the space, and I feel like even that community is very collaborative, and I have really wonderful relationships with a lot of those other companies too, and even like mentioned, hey, I'm kind of trying to teach some of this stuff too, and got like the blessings from a lot of them too, just because it is a space that like you're trying to only kind of foster help for other artists, and the way that you're going to communicate that information is personal to your journey. So like, again, like this book, Incremental Growth Theory, one more plug right here. Go
ahead. Here.
Oh, we're going to put the link up.
Yeah.
igtbook.com. It's my journey. It's like what I'm doing as an artist, and if any of that helps you, I'd be, so lucky to share that with you. So that is sort of the main ethos that I govern my career with too, is just helping share the things that are working well for me, and then some of them will work, some of them won't work, and we'll just keep on iterating as we go.
Yeah, 100% agree. I just want to again thank you, and I support whatever, like your journey, and
Thank you.
where can like people find you on Instagram? And I know you just plugged the where people can go to get the book, but where can they go to like your Spotify, your Instagram?
It's just Patrick James Clark. Everything is at Patrick James Clark. Spotify, Instagram, socials. My company, Incremental Growth Academy, like that is doesn't have a social media presence because it's my career. It's based on my artistry. So if you want to see me like using these tactics, you can follow me online at Patrick James Clark.
Okay, and I'm gonna have this one more time because I just like doing this. It's fun.
Nice. Yeah, go to igtbook.com to pick up your copy of the book.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And as usual, everything is in the show notes. So if you want any of the links, they will be linked down below. And thank you so much for being on, Patrick.
Thank you. Can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Musician Secrets podcast. If you got value from this conversation, leave your biggest aha moment or your transition in the comments down below. Not only does this help me know what's landing for you, it also tells the algorithm that this episode was generally helpful. So you can reach even more musicians who need the same breakthrough that you just had. Thank you again, and see you the next time. Mahalo.